Rarity has been a hot topic for PoE 2 recently, and much of the content and discussion out there is highly focused on increased item rarity from gear. There are deeper interactions at play here that are not so visible or apparent that new players should understand if they want to be successful in the end game. By the time you finish this quick video, you will understand the core rarity mechanics in the game and be more confident while scaling and farming in the end game. The information in this video is not new, but it is often either unknown to the newer or casual player or misunderstood based on faulty or incomplete answers to quick questions. Most of the information I will share here is found on the PoE2 wiki. I will link the wiki article on Rarity in the description. To understand how to use Rarity to our advantage, we need to have a basic understanding of the various Rarity mechanics in the game. First, the most visible Rarity system in the game, and that is item Rarity. This is the white equals normal, blue equals magic, yellow equals rare, and orange equals unique item rarity system that you see in the game. Also clearly visible and understood is the fact that monsters have rarity in this game, just like items. By default, magic monsters can roll up to 2 modifiers and rare monsters up to 4. These caps can be increased. This is important because the number of modifiers on a monster increases not just their difficulty, but also their rewards. The rarity of the monster and the amount of the modifiers on the monster increase item rarity and item quantity, meaning a juicier rare has a higher chance to drop more and better loot. Monster level and the rarity of the monster determines the item level of the gear that can drop. Generally, you can drop between 0 and +2 levels above the monster's level, depending on the rarity of the monster. This allows you to drop eye level 82 gear in a level 80 zone. This is important because gear level determines which modifier and tiers of those modifiers can roll on that piece of gear. There are modifier tiers that require eye level 82 in order to roll. See a link to Path of Exile 2 in the description of this video for more info on gear modifier tiers. Chests and strongboxes also have inherent rarity which affect the items found. With all of those basics out of the way, let's talk about our favorite mechanic, increased item rarity, or IIR. There are multiple sources of IIR and not all are treated the same. Most importantly, IIR on your character from items and buffs is soft capped at 150%. This is the cap that gets a lot of attention, but it is extremely important to know that this is not a cap on total IIR. When I say soft cap, it is effectively a hard cap for most players in most applications, meaning it is rarely worth stacking more than 150% IIR on your character unless you have very specific and advanced tactics at play. Most recently, controlled testing by Farham shows that there are significant benefits to IIR in the ranges between 100 and 150%. His testing also showed clear benefits between 0 and 100%. His testing excluded map sources of IIR and also demonstrated the severity of the soft cap at 150% on the character. The next source of IIR we already talked about, and that is monster IIR, which again is increased by monster level, rarity, and number of modifiers. Asmarian wisps also increase the IIR of monsters that are hunted, and deliriousness is another source of monster IIR. The higher percentage of deliriousness equals increased IIR. Of these sources of IIR, only player IIR from gear and buffs is known to have diminishing returns. Additionally, these sources of IIR are multiplicative. For example, 50% player IIR and 50% map IIR does not equal 100%. It equals 125% total IIR. Finally, there is area IIR. This is what you can see when pressing tab on PC and dropping down the area effect tab under the minimap. Area IIR can be affected in many ways, most notably Waystone and tablet modifiers, corruption and cleansed modifiers, and by instilling your maps with liquid greed. IIR interacts with loot via the rarity tier system. Basically, when an item drops, a roll occurs which determines the rarity of the tier. Tier 0 equals no changes to drops. Rarity tier between 1 and 5 has several effects on drops, including increased chance at higher loot rarity, increased chance to upgrade currency, increased chance at higher tier uniques, etc. Basically, higher chance for better loot. Rarity tier 6 through 9 is when the unidentified tier system is applied to gear drops. This is the gear that has a tier level between 2 and 5 listed when dropped on the ground. The higher tier levels increase the chance of higher level modifiers rolling on the gear when identified. This tier essentially disappears from the gear once identified, meaning no longer will it affect further modifiers added to the gear via crafting. IIR increases the chances to roll higher rarity tiers when items are dropped. Putting this all together, players must consider all sources of IIR when optimizing for end game play. For instance, knowing how monster level and number of modifiers affects monster IIR and thus the quantity and quality of loot drops means that players should focus on scaling their power level in order to start clearing at least eye level 80 maps before worrying about other sources of IIR. Having said that, we see from Farham and other content creators that IIR increases from 0 to 100 are significant. For any player who has leveled through the campaign with no IIR on gear versus, say, 40%, will likely feel a very meaningful impact to the quantity and quality of drops throughout their campaign experience. What I am saying is that you should not ignore IIR no matter what stage of the game you're in. However, you should also not be focused on maximizing IIR until you are at the very end game. My advice to new players entering maps is to pick up IIR from all sources incrementally as you scale your character. Getting a bit from gear, a bit from the map, and a bit from the monsters will really help players drop the currency and gear upgrades needed to progress in the end game. As your character strength improves and you scale into T15 and T16 maps, you can then really focus on maximizing IIR across all sources to begin farming in earnest. Remember that the 150% cap is only applicable to the IIR on your character, and it only takes 50% IIR from your character and from your map to reach 125% total IIR, which has been shown by numerous content creators to make a significant impact on quantity and quality of loot. This does not even take into account the monster IIR. If you have more to add to this discussion, please share your knowledge by dropping a tier 10 comment. Until next time, take care.